Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be looking at the future of data engineering in 2025.
Okay.
And we've got this really interesting article from DataPro.news called Three Major Tech Trends Reshaping Data Engineering to Guide Us.
Yeah, it's a good one. And they're not just, looking into a crystal ball.
Right.
They're actually basing this on some pretty significant trends that are happening right now.
Yeah.
Like, did you see that investments in AI jumped 27% just this past year?
Yeah, I did.
It's huge.
Yeah, that's a lot. And it's really interesting, too, how they pointed out that AI engineering roles are just exploding.
Yeah.
They're growing something like 285% compared to 2023.
Wow.
Which is crazy. Data-related jobs in general are up 50%, which is still a lot.
Yeah.
But AI is clearly like the star.
It is AI is the main character.
Yeah.
And the article breaks down all these trends into three big categories.
Okay.
And you guessed it, AI is the driving force behind all of them.
So the first category is AI imperatives and risks. And they talk about how AI is basically all over Gartner's list of top strategic technologies for 2025. And then there's this idea of agentic AI, which, I don't know, sounds a little bit science fiction-y to me. What is that?
Well, just imagine software that can basically make decisions on its own to achieve certain goals. Like, think of it as a team of super efficient digital project managers.
Okay.
But they're all AI.
So instead of us coding everything ourselves, we're like teaching and managing these AI agents.
That's the idea. The article uses data pipelines as a good example.
Okay.
So instead of having to manually code every step of the data pipeline, data engineers would be training AI agents to handle things like data ingestion, transformation, even storage.
That's a huge shift, though.
It is.
Like, what kind of skills would data engineers even need in that type of world?
Well, coding would still be important.
Okay.
But it becomes more about designing these AI systems and training the agents.
Yeah.
So you'd need a really deep understanding of machine learning, AI ethics, and how to manage these autonomous systems.
It sounds like there'd be a whole bunch of new job titles, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
They mentioned AI pipeline architects,
Right.
who would be the ones designing these complex systems.
Right.
And then because these AI agents are making decisions that impact real people, there's a need for AI ethics specialists to make sure that these systems are operating ethically and responsibly.
It's almost like we're moving from building the machines to teaching them how to do things and then trusting them to do the work.
Yeah, and the article highlights a really key part of that trust, which is the rise of AI governance platforms.
Okay.
So it's essentially having robust systems in place to ensure that AI is used legally, responsibly, and ethically.
Yeah.
Think of it like a set of checks and balances to make sure the AI stays in line.
So it's not just that data engineers would be building pipelines. They'd also have to think about, okay, is this pipeline complying with all of our AI governance rules?
Exactly. And then there's another layer to this. The article calls it transparency and explainability.
Okay.
And it's all about being able to understand why these AI systems make the decisions they do. Because we can't just blindly trust a black box.
Right?
Right.
Yeah, it makes sense. We need to be able to kind of audit it and make sure it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. What kind of new roles would you see popping up around that?
Well, I mean, think about it. You'd need people like AI governance specialists who define the rules.
Okay.
Explainable AI engineers who can actually make those rules transparent. And even AI compliance auditors to make sure everyone's playing by the rules.
Wow, this is getting into some really deep ethical territory. It's not just about like crunching numbers anymore. It's like philosophy and responsibility.
Yeah.
But hold on, there's more. The article also talks about this pretty scary prospect of disinformation security, which, I mean, it feels like fake news and deep fakes are already a problem.
Right.
But with AI now able to like create content, things could get out of control pretty quickly.
It's a huge concern. And I mean, think about it. If AI can write news articles or create realistic looking videos, it becomes even harder to know what's real and what's not.
Data engineers are going to have to be like digital detectives, I guess, trying to figure out what's trustworthy and what's been manipulated.
Exactly. The article emphasizes the need for really robust data verification systems to ensure that the information we're using is accurate and authentic.
Right.
Think of it like fact-checking on steroids.
I'm also thinking about anomaly detection, too, right?
Yeah.
Like spotting anything unusual in the data that could be a sign of manipulation. And they mentioned blockchain as a potential solution for this because it could create like a tamper-proof record of data.
Yeah.
So you'd always know like where the information came from and if it had been altered.
Definitely a fascinating technology with a lot of potential in this area.
Yeah.
And this whole landscape is going to create new job roles too.
Like what?
Like data integrity specialists.
Okay.
Who are responsible for ensuring the quality and the trustworthiness of data. You could have disinformation detection engineers.
Okay.
Who build algorithms to spot those AI-generated fakes.
Wow.
And even blockchain data architects who design these secure systems for data storage and verification.
Okay, so we've got a lot to unpack here.
Yeah.
And that's just the first category of trends from this article.
Yeah.
It seems like AI is going to like fundamentally change the world of data engineering.
Yeah, it's going to have a huge impact.
In some pretty profound ways.
And we've only just scratched the surface.
Yeah.
What I think is really interesting is how these trends are going to play out differently across different industries.
Yeah.
Like disinformation security, for example, might be even more critical for fields like journalism or finance.
Right.
Where trust and accuracy are absolutely essential.
Yeah. Great point. And imagine what it would be like in healthcare.
Oh, what?
Where AI agents could be assisting with diagnoses or treatment plans.
Right.
The stakes are incredibly high in those situations.
Absolutely.
So it's clear that these trends are going to ripple across pretty much all sectors.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I think what I find most fascinating is how there's this human element woven into all of it.
Yeah.
It's not just about the technology. It's about how we use it,
right?
How we manage it, and how we ensure that it serves humanity in a positive way.
So it feels like the takeaway so far is that data engineering is evolving at an incredible pace.
Yeah.
And it's not enough to just be like technically proficient anymore. Data professionals are going to need to be adaptable, ethical,
absolutely,
and constantly learning to stay ahead of the curve.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
And with that in mind, I think it's time we move on to the second category of trends that the article explores, which is new frontiers of computing. So get ready for a deep dive into the world of quantum cryptography.
Oh, wow.
And ambient intelligence.
Okay.
Where the boundaries between the physical and digital worlds start to blur.
Oh, let's go. Okay, so we're on to this second big trend category, new frontiers of computing.
Yeah.
It sounds kind of like we're stepping into a sci-fi movie.
It does feel that way sometimes.
Yeah.
The article talks about a lot of really cool cutting-edge stuff. But let's focus on two that really stand out to me.
Okay.
Which are post-quantum cryptography and ambient invisible intelligence.
All right, post-quantum cryptography, that's a mouthful. What is that all about?
So to understand that, we need to talk about quantum computing for a sec.
Okay.
So imagine a computer so powerful that it can crack codes in seconds that would take our current computers years, maybe even centuries to break.
Right.
That's the potential of quantum computing.
Wow.
And it poses really serious threat to like all the encryption methods that we use today.
So post-quantum cryptography, or PQC as they call it, is like our defense against these like super-powered quantum hackers.
Exactly. It's about developing new encryption algorithms that can withstand attacks from these quantum computers. The article calls it cryptographic agility, which is basically the ability to quickly adapt to new encryption standards as they emerge.
Right, because we need to be prepared for a world where quantum computing is just the norm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what about all the systems that we're using right now?
Yeah.
Like imagine trying to update everything to be quantum resistant.
That's a huge undertaking.
It would be a massive undertaking for organizations.
Right.
Especially those that have a lot of legacy systems.
Yeah.
So the article predicts a huge surge in demand for specialists who can help companies navigate this whole transition.
So what kind of new roles are we talking about here?
Well, you'd need people like quantum-safe data architects who can design systems that are resilient to these quantum attacks. And you'd need post-quantum cryptography specialists to actually develop those new encryption methods.
Wow, so it's like a digital arms race.
It is.
Constantly evolving to stay ahead of the threats.
Yeah, it's a constant game of cat and mouse.
All right, well, let's shift gears a little bit to that next topic you mentioned.
Sure.
Ambient invisible intelligence.
Okay.
Which, I don't know, sounds a little bit creepy and a little bit cool at the same time.
It is a little bit of both. It's all about this explosion of data that we're seeing from all the sensors and devices that are popping up everywhere, like smartphones, smart appliances, wearables. They're all constantly collecting data about our environment, our behavior.
It's kind of like we're swimming in a sea of data at this point.
Exactly. And the challenge for data engineers is like managing and making sense of this constant flood of information.
So how do you even begin to tackle that?
Well, the article talks about the importance of edge computing, which basically means processing the data closer to the source instead of sending it all back to like a central server.
So doing more of the processing like right there on the device.
Exactly. And they also talk about the need for real-time data processing.
Okay, why is that so important when we're talking about all this ambient data?
Because sometimes you need insights immediately. Like take self-driving cars as an example.
Okay.
They have to process data from all their sensors in real time to make those split-second decisions.
Right. Or like a smart city that's using sensor data to optimize traffic flow.
Exactly.
Or energy consumption, all in real time.
It's all about being able to react to the data as it comes in.
Okay, that makes sense. But with all this data being collected everywhere, doesn't it raise some pretty serious privacy concerns?
Absolutely. Data privacy and security become even more critical as data collection becomes more ubiquitous.
Yeah.
So data engineers need to be thinking about building systems that are secure, transparent, and respect user privacy.
So it's not just about collecting and analyzing the data.
Right.
It's about doing it responsibly.
Exactly.
Ethically.
Absolutely. And that brings us back to that human element we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
As technology advances, we need to make sure that we keep those ethical considerations front and center.
So it seems like navigating these new frontiers of computing is going to require data engineers to be really adaptable, forward-thinking, always anticipating the next big challenge.
They definitely will.
Right.
It's not enough to just be good at coding anymore.
Right.
You need a really deep understanding of things like quantum computing, cybersecurity, and the ethical implications of all these new technologies.
All right, so speaking of pushing boundaries and exploring new frontiers, let's dive into that third category from the article.
Okay.
Human-machine synergy.
Right.
What exactly does that entail?
Well, get ready for a wild ride. Because this is where technology really starts to intertwine with our physical world.
Okay.
And even our own bodies. We're talking about things like spatial computing.
Right.
Polyfunctional robots.
Okay.
And even neurological enhancements.
Okay, so human-machine synergy.
Right.
It sounds like we're really stepping into the future here.
We are. This is where the lines between the physical and digital worlds, that these really start to blur.
Okay.
And the article highlights some pretty mind-blowing concepts, like spatial computing.
Spatial computing?
Yeah.
I feel like that's something I'd see in a sci-fi movie.
It kind of is. Think about it this way. Instead of interacting with data on like a flat screen, imagine being able to immerse yourself in a 3D space where the data comes to life.
So instead of staring at spreadsheets and graphs all day, we'd be like walking through these virtual worlds of data.
Exactly. And it's not just about visualization either. It's about interacting with data in a whole new way. Well, the article talks about 3D data modeling as a key skill for data engineers in this spatial computing world. So imagine building data models that you can actually like move around in and explore from different angles.
That's pretty cool. I can see how that would be really useful for things like urban planning, architecture, being able to visualize those really complex data sets in a 3D environment.
Absolutely. And it's not just about static models either.
Okay.
The article also talks about real-time data integration.
Right.
So these spatial environments could be constantly updated with live data feeds.
Oh, wow. So you could see how traffic patterns are changing in a city in real time.
Exactly.
Or track like the flow of materials through a supply chain.
Precisely. The article calls this augmented analytics.
Augmented analytics.
Yeah, using spatial computing to gain deeper insights and make better decisions.
Okay. This is all starting to sound less like science fiction and more like something we could actually see in the next few years.
It's closer than you think. And speaking of things that blur the lines between reality and technology.
Yeah.
Let's talk about robots.
Robots, like actual physical robots. I thought we were talking about data engineering.
We are. But these robots are going to rely heavily on data to operate.
Okay.
The article calls them polyfunctional robots.
Okay.
Robots that can perform multiple tasks and adapt to different situations.
Okay, so how does that tie back to data engineering?
Well, think about it. These robots will need to process data from all sorts of sources like sensors, cameras.
Right.
To understand their surroundings and make decisions.
So they need to be able to like learn and adapt.
Exactly. based on the data they collect.
So it's not just about building the physical robot.
Right.
It's about building its brain, its intelligence using data.
Exactly. And that's where data engineering comes in. The article predicts a need for specialists in areas like sensor data processing and machine learning for robotics.
So what would those job titles even look like?
Well, you could have robotics data engineer who build the data infrastructure for these robots, or AI-driven robotics programmer who develops the algorithms that make them smart.
That's really interesting. All right, so we've gone from AI to quantum computing and now to robots. What's next?
Well, the article actually goes even further,
touching
on a topic that feels almost too futuristic to even comprehend.
What's that?
Neurological enhancement.
Neurological enhancement? Is that even possible?
It's still in its early stages, but the potential is definitely there. Imagine being able to control computers or access data using just your thoughts.
Okay, that sounds like something straight out of a superhero movie.
It does, doesn't it?
But it also raises a lot of questions.
Yeah, sure.
Like, what are the ethical implications of something like that? And what about privacy? Who has access to those thoughts?
You're right. Those are all really important questions that we need to be thinking about as this technology develops.
Wow, this has been quite a journey.
It has.
We've gone from AI agents to quantum-resistant encryption.
Yeah.
And now we're talking about robots and mind-controlled computers.
It's amazing how quickly this field is evolving.
It really is. So what's the biggest takeaway for our listeners?
I think the key message here is that data engineering is undergoing a massive transformation. And it's all happening at an incredibly fast pace.
Right. So how can data professionals prepare for this future?
Well, they need to be continuous learners. Constantly adapting and evolving their skills.
So don't be afraid to explore those new areas. Push the boundaries, challenge the status quo.
Exactly. And the article mentions a couple of resources for people who want to dive deeper into these topics.
So what are those?
There's the Data Innovators Exchange. And the Enterprise AI Engineering Classroom and Resource Hub.
Those sound like great starting points. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the future of data engineering, I want to leave our listeners with a question to ponder. As we become more reliant on data and technology, how do we ensure that we're using these incredible tools for good?
That's a great question, and it's one that we all need to be asking ourselves.
It is. And with that thought-provoking question, I want to thank everyone for joining us on this deep dive into the future of data engineering. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep asking those important questions.